If you've seen our previous overview video of the marks adjustment processes, you're obviously wanting a bit more information about each of them. So this will take you through the moderation process and how we do that. In the other video, I talked about us having to compare results from a whole different number of contexts, and that we're trying to look at the context in which you've achieved your performance this year. We talked about the three things that will happen to your marks: moderation, standardisation and scaling. So in this video, we're going to talk particularly about the moderation process. So let's look at it this way. Let's say we've got three schools here and they're all doing the same subject. So three groups of people doing the same subject but in different school contexts. And in trying to represent this, if you look at the blue bars, that sort of represents the range of marks that the people got in their school assessment. And the orange bars represent how well each of those groups of students did in the exam. And so you'll see, if you look at School A compared to School B, School A's school marks have got a much higher average. That red line is the average. And their range of marks is much higher than the marks from School B. And so is that because the people in School A are actually better at this subject than the people in School B? It could be, but we don't know, do we? It could be that the teacher in School A is a much more generous marking teacher than the teacher in School B. So it might be because the people are better at that subject, or it might be how they're marked, or it might be a combination of both. So how do we check that? This is where the exam performance comes in. So the orange bars represent the performance of that group of students in the examination for that subject. And if you compare them across the three schools, you'll see that all three groups have actually achieved pretty much the same kind of performance in the exam. So we'd then think, okay, well, the differences in marks from their schools aren't necessarily because they're actually better. It's more to do with how they've been marked. So the moderation process just looks at the performance of people in the exam and adjusts the average and the spread of marks from their school assessments so that it aligns more closely with how they've done in the exam. So you can see in this theoretical example in School A and School B, that's resulted in a quite significant change to the overall marks. In School C, their school performance was pretty close to what they got in the exam anyway, which is actually the most common thing across the board as it is. So their adjustment was pretty minor. You may or may not be aware that teachers spend a lot of time out of the classroom checking their marking standards with other teachers to make sure that they're doing it at the proper level. So usually moderation is a fairly minor adjustment for most people. But it just gives you reassurance that the system is trying to make it as fair as possible no matter which school you go to, and using the common denominator of the exam to make sure that you don't get an advantage or you're not disadvantaged depending on what school you're at or what teacher you have at that school. Remember that all of this is so that we can calculate your ATAR at the end of the year.